So at the beginning of the research and development period, we took 4 months, which was a goodish amount of time, to research and read up on all the available published EAL assessment frameworks from countries such as the United States, Canada, Australia, and so on. We also looked at some of the relevant assessment frameworks in Europe. And the purpose of that initial, if you like, reading period was to make sure that all 4 of us share the same knowledge framework, so that when we took the work forward to the next stage, we knew that we had a common set of knowledge. And that was very important. But of course, the more important thing was that we became, in the process, familiar with, if you like, the current developments from systems around the world, and that through our discussions and our team meetings, we began to identify the most relevant bits of the reading that we were going through. And that effectively formed the conceptual and theoretical base for the next phase. Once we got to the point where we knew conceptually how best to frame the Bell Foundation assessment framework, we were able to draw on all the available literature that we had read by then to begin to put together, if you like, the raw material for the assessment framework in the form of a selection of descriptors drawn from all these EAL assessment frameworks developed by our colleagues in the different countries. And that formed the basis, if you like, for the next phase of the empirical work. And that is, we did not just use our own, if you like, professional judgment to say, well, this descriptor looks good, so let's use it. Although we obviously, we could have made judgments like that, but we decided not to. What we decided to do was to select those from all the descriptors that we had read, the ones that would look reasonably relevant to our school context. And we assembled those first. And then we had a look at them as a kind of collection. And to say, well, are these descriptors, about 1,000 of them, do they really, would they make sense to our teachers if we were to, present them to teachers who might not have been familiar with this kind of assessment work? And so at that stage, we did use our own judgment, but that's not to say, well, we have selected them, that's why they go forward. No, we were putting them in so that they could be considered further. So we got this kind of huge set of descriptors, and that's the point at which we invited our colleagues in this country to come and tell us, so to speak, what they think we should do. And we did that by using a web platform called No More Marking. And basically what we did was we uploaded all our kind of, if you like, first phase descriptors onto the software. And the software itself would then, if you like, randomly pick out from our collection 2 descriptors and to present to our very helpful participant teachers who told us that they would be happy to basically sacrifice their time to help us make the right selection of descriptors. How did we get to that stage? Well, we invited teachers to help us at various professional meetings and conferences. And at one of the, for example, conferences or meetings through the National Association for Language Development in the curriculum, we asked teachers if they were interested in helping us, could they come forward and leave us with their email, and so that we could follow up on their offer. So we contacted all the teachers who came forward to help us. Well, in the end, we reported actually in our final run of the data analysis. In the final run of that, we use 11,755 decisions made by teachers online. But in fact, as you probably know, when we were going through the statistical analysis, we did honestly countless number of runs on the using the software, and on some of the runs we actually used more than 12,000 judgments, and because it was quite frankly quite a complicated business of looking at the various runs of the statistical analysis, we decided eventually, after honestly quite a long period of work, a particular one was most, as it were, trustworthy. And so we've reported the number of decisions involved in that particular piece of analysis. So it was quite a large number of actual professional decisions made by teachers working in school. So we felt that we had a good empirical base for our final selection, and the analysis we did essentially help us to order, if you like, the raw descriptors that we put into the software, ranking them from, if you like, in the order of difficulty. So in other words, some descriptors would come up, metaphorically speaking, at the top, and that would be, if you like, the place where all the beginner stages would be. And the tail end of this, if you like, would be the descriptors that would be judged by the teachers to be very difficult. They would be the material for, if you like, the top end, the highest band in the proficiency scale. And so we then work on, if you like, based on the judgments made by the teachers, we then go back to the descriptors that were in the system. And it was at that point that we then did find, some refining. And the four of us then really looked at the groups of or the clusters of descriptors that we could see in statistical terms as fitting for the beginning, and the group that would be fitting for the high proficiency end of it, and all the bands of stages in between. And from then on, we set about looking at them specifically in terms of readability and in terms of easy to use, and so on and so on. And so we then distill from a very large set into those, if you like, 10 descriptors for each of the bands that we now have, that we can all see in the published scales. But that's not even the end of it. We then also went on to show that so-called provisional final set, if you like, to a group of advisors. These are, we call them advisors, but they are very senior, experienced teachers. And they then provided feedback to say, okay, they look okay, but if I were you, I would do something slightly different. Maybe that word is not quite easy to understand. I recall, that we had long discussions on things like, should we use the word morpheme, for example, or grapheme, or phoneme, or whatever, and things like that. Went back and forth for a while until we gradually settled down to a kind of consensus. So how many of the technical terms should be taken out? How many should be kept? Because what you don't really want to do is to kind of talk down. It would be as bad as to make your language so inaccessible that no one could understand what the descriptors are about. So it was a very interesting exercise. But so ultimately we took on the advice from our advisors, and so we refined them further before they went public.